Once in a great while, there comes an idea or a set of concepts that completely takes a hold of and revolutionizes the way that we live. In the 1500s, individuals of the likes of Kepler, Copernicus, and Galileo provided for us a drastic new way of looking at the universe at the cost of their own persecution, a fault that was not recognized and pardoned until more recently. In our first video, Source of Consciousness, we explored where consciousness may arise and how we build our lives within the construct of the world as it presents itself. Here we will unveil the concept of consciousness manifesting in our brains through quantum fields. The quantum field that is the most likely to produce consciousness manifests in a medium called the zero-point energy field. Nikola Tesla spoke of an original medium that fills space and compared it to the acacia, the light-carrying ether. In his unpublished 1907 paper, Man's Greatest Achievement, Tesla wrote that this original medium, a kind of force field that becomes matter when prana, or cosmic energy, acts on it. And when the action ceases, matter vanishes and returns to acacia. Because this medium fills all of space, everything that happens in space can be referred to it. So what is acacia? Acacia is a Sanskrit word meaning primary substance, that of which all things are formed. In Vedic Hinduism, acacia means the basis and essence of all things in the material world, and the one eternal, all-pervading physical substance that is imperceptible and holds all past, present, and future information within it. What is zero-point energy? Zero-point energy results from principles of quantum mechanics, the physics of subatomic particles. Should these particles ever come completely to rest, their component atoms would be precisely located and would simultaneously have precisely specific velocities, namely a value of 0. The zero-point energy field is a vibrational energy, a wave-like nature that particles retain even at the temperature of absolute 0. Random quantum fluctuations of the electromagnetic and other force fields are present everywhere in the vacuum of space. So the question posed, could the underlying force, now named zero-point energy, be the influencer medium for all of the observed and unobserved quantum fields? The idea of zero-point energy showed up when the quantum field theory rose to prominence in 1925 by German physicists Werner Heisenberg, Max Born, Pascal Jordan, and Austrian physicist Erwin Schrödinger, who invented wave mechanics. In addition to all the ways that particles could interact with one another through the quantum fields that permeate throughout the universe, alludes to the fact that this zero-point energy does affect the quantum fields as the medium influencer. Specific research done by Tapin Das in his Origin of Consciousness and the Zero-Point Field Theory illustrates that the quantum particle called bosons in the brain emerge from quantum electric processes, which are only ever triggered by a very small wave fluctuation, asserting that the collapse of these materials creates for consciousness. From here, he goes on to discuss how the implications of quantum physics, as found in a vacuum, suggests that zero-point energy can be viewed as supreme consciousness, where our consciousness meets and converges after every event. In 2020, Nobel Prize-winning physicist Roger Penrose teamed up with anesthesiologist Stuart Hamerhoff to propose consciousness can be explained by quantum physics. Our brains are composed of cells called neurons, and their combined activity is believed to generate consciousness. Each neuron contains microtubules, which transport substances to different parts of the cell. The Penrose-Hameroff theory of quantum consciousness argues that microtubules are structured in a fractal pattern which would enable quantum processes to occur.
But I got a letter from this crazy person, I thought at first.
And this is Stuart Hameroff.
This was Stuart Hameroff. And he had the view that consciousness had to do with, not with nerve transmission, as everybody else seemed to think, but as in terms of microtubules. These little tiny structures, much, much smaller than nerves. So we got together and did things. We didn't quite know what we were doing. There are certain rough edges to that argument which need to be thought about, but the general argument is still what I believe. Whatever understanding is something which must be beyond computable physics.
And if you think consciousness is non-computable, does that mean that you think it's beyond what science can discern?
Not necessarily beyond science, no. It's just not beyond, it's beyond current science. My claim is much worse, much more serious, much more outrageous than that it's quantum mechanics in the brain. Mainstream views about what consciousness is, I don't know, there are about 4 of them. And one of them is us. That's a bit of a shift. There are also experiments now looking at effects to do with quantum effects and to do with effects of general anesthetics. And there do seem to be some connections there. So it's coming into the area of experimental confirmation or refutation. So I find that exciting.
Fractals are geometric structures that is similar to itself on all scales, and are neither two-dimensional nor three-dimensional, but are instead some fractional value in between. In mathematics, fractals emerge as beautiful patterns that repeat themselves infinitely, generating what is seemingly impossible, a structure that has a finite area, but infinite perimeter. Fractal patterns actually occur frequently in nature. It is easy to see why fractals have been used to explain the complexity of human consciousness. Fractal patterns are infinitely intricate, allowing complexity to emerge from simple, repeated patterns. They could be the structures that support the mysterious depths of our mind. The fact that consciousness manifests through quantum fields, such as particle entanglement and superposition, may play an important role in the brain's function. Zero-point energy has been coined the superconsciousness, where our consciousness emerges. Current study suggests that consciousness transmits throughout the empty vacuum of space in the universe. Some physicists believe that the vacuum of space may hold the key to full understanding of nature through what just might be the anti-gravitational force of zero-point energy within the gravitational energy density of dark matter. The hypothetical dark matter makes up approximately 68% of the universe and is responsible for the way galaxies are organized. Dark energy, meanwhile, is the hypothetical force and mysterious influence driving the accelerated expansion of the universe. Zero-point energy and dark energy are the theorized forces that may make up the actions we observe in our universe. What if consciousness exists within the medium of zero-point energy and the dark energy construct of a universe? If Penrose and Hameroff are correct, and the microtubule fractal pattern in the brain enable the quantum process to occur within the zero-point energy field, it is theorized that this is where consciousness emerges after every event. If we examine what quantum particles are suspected for this event, then consciousness obtains energy from the zero-point field to interpret the interference pattern of the energy levels generated by bosons and electrons and the special coordinates of these particle fields before it collapses into a wave pattern. Bosons emerge from the quantum electric field of the brain triggered by the small energy of brain waves, and the electrons come from the brain, axons, and neurons. The collapse of the wave interference patterns create consciousness, transferring its energy, and the consciousness merges with the supreme consciousness, which is zero-point energy. It is experimentally proven that zero-point energy exists, even at absolute zero temperature, which is contrary to the third law of thermodynamics. The study postulates that this zero-point energy not only exists in our universe, but also outside our universe, speculating that zero-point energy is the supreme consciousness, where consciousness emerges after every event. Theories explaining how consciousness is expressed from the quantum electrodynamics field or zero-point energy field into physical brain activity have for many years been studied. Recently, those theories are manifesting agreeable results. It is argued that SED, stochastic electrodynamics, a collective of research efforts relating to quantum electrodynamics and the medium zero-point energy field, supplemented by two well-founded hypotheses, leads to a promising theoretical approach that is able to establish a fundamental connection between physics and consciousness. Thus, these attempts to relate consciousness to quantum state reductions in the brain and attribute the mystery of consciousness allows a deeper understanding and explanation of the quantum phenomena to consciousness. Does supreme consciousness mean that everything in the universe has consciousness? The theory of panpsychism might then have some answers to this question. Panpsychism is the idea that everything has elements of consciousness and is re-emerging, breathing new life into a cold and mechanical cosmos. This idea did not evolve to meet some survival need, nor did it emerge when brains became sufficiently complex. Instead, it is inherent in matter, all matter. In other words, everything has consciousness. Consciousness is not limited to humans and other animals. Plants have it too. It doesn't stop at living things either. Stones and stars, electrons and photons, even quarks have consciousness. According to some versions of the theory, the universe itself is conscious. Philip Goff, a philosopher at Durham University, UK, explains the theory like this. Panpsychism in contemporary philosophy is the view that consciousness is fundamental and ubiquitous, where to be conscious is simply to have subjective experience of some kind. This does not necessarily imply anything as sophisticated as thoughts.
Why do you think there is consciousness in these, I guess what we would call, not brain-based entities?
Because we face a theoretical, and we cannot avoid this theoretical choice. Do we put the physical world first and try and get consciousness out of it? Do we put consciousness first, try and get the physical world out of it? Or do we take both? I think the first option, the materialist option, nobody has ever made the slightest bit of progress on its central explanatory task. No one's managed to at all explain how you're going to get consciousness out of purely physical processes. The second option, the panpsychist option, I think it has been shown how we can do it. The problem is essentially solved.
As we examine these theories of the zero-point energy field, we have to conclude that it is extraordinarily spread throughout the universe and possibly the multiverse. Some scientists also suggest that this medium could be harnessed for unlimited energy and vast distance instantaneous communication. We here at the channel postulate that if said consciousness influencer covers the vast universe and bleeds over into the multiverse, this then would serve as the all-collective consciousness. We find these studies to be highly compelling.